Hype or trend? How to identify what really matters to consumers. Welcome, Andrea Nagel, Senior Vice President, News and Programming, CEW.
Hello and welcome. We are so happy that you can join us today for this informative discussion on the topic of hypes versus trends and identifying what's important to consumers so that you can operate and deliver more efficiently. The panelists speaking today include Leonardo Heringer, who is the Global Digital Insights Manager at L'Oréal, Shelley Landsman, the Chairwoman at Revuze, and Noah Shachaf, Head of Consumer Insights and Analytics at Revuze. Following our discussion, we will have an audience Q&A, so please submit your questions in the chat. Before we get started, I wanted to share details on two upcoming CEW events that should not be missed. First, on October 17th, that's this Thursday, CEW will have a fireside chat with Amazon Beauty's Melis Del Rey, where we will discuss all of the different beauty brands that are joining the platform, as well as consumer shopping insights and brand partnership strategies for both small and large companies. Then, on October 24th, you can learn from today's up-and-coming beauty founders on how they're building their brands with CEW's virtual female founder panel, Rise and Thrive. These founders will share their journeys and equip you with the tools and knowledge you need to succeed. Both of these events are virtual and free for CEW members, so register now at cew.org. To begin today's discussion, let's welcome our panelists, Leo, Shelley, and Noah. Join us. Hello, everyone. As I mentioned, we are going to learn how brands and beauty professionals can leverage technology to distinguish between fleeting fads and lasting trends. Revuze is the company that takes a data-driven approach to differentiate between the two. So let's get started. I'd love to start with Shelley. Can you maybe discuss how AI-driven consumer insights are transforming the way cosmetic brands innovate and how Revuze comes into the picture?
Yes, sure, Andrea. Thank you so much for having us today. It's a great question because I think we firstly need to address of why AI is even playing a part at the beauty industry, right? And how can this affect innovation and really understand that. So I think we need to go back to ask ourselves where innovation is really happening. So it's happening everywhere in the world, same time. And the question is, how can we really follow and track that? How can we really have the magnitude of understanding what is happening in everywhere in the globe today, capture all of that huge set of data to really capture, analyze, have insights around, prioritize. This is too much for human action, and you need to have something that manage that. And this is where AI plays a major role at really gathering everything and having translate that into insights and action back to innovation and product teams.
Right. So thank you for highlighting the changing face of the consumer insights industry. So how then can cosmetic brands integrate AI-powered insights into their business, from identifying emerging trends to validating product market fit before launch?
Great question. I think I want to assume that every cosmetic brand is now following social, and social listening will probably give nicer and good insights of hypes and what's happening. You'll probably see like hundreds of topics that are happening around the cosmetics. The question is, how do you prioritize them? How do you really understand whether something is major and you want to go back to product and innovation and create your next line of business? Or how do you tell the story if it comes to marketing? And so you have to make this decision. The way to really address that is, again, collect all the data, analyze that, all based on what people are really buyers, users are saying, and translate that into prioritization and what is really a trend, what should we follow. Sometimes what's a hype and take a risk around it goes back to both innovation and product and marketing.
Right. So it seems like brands are really not working with a complete data set, so it's not really easy for them to identify the hypes and the trends. Um, Noah, maybe you can distinguish between reviews and social listening when it comes to trends and hypes and explain how they complement one another.
So they do complement one another, but they're very different. Social listening is what are people discussing? Kind of alludes to what Shelley was saying. What are discussing, what is being hyped and pushed by the industry, influenced by the industry, very, very biased because it's very difficult to distinguish what's true, what's fake. And at the end of the day, what is being discussed in social listening is not necessarily what ends up in people's, pockets and, money being spent on. It could be that if you just rely on social listening, you may put your development and innovation dollars in the wrong place. And this is where reviews comes in. Reviews tells the industry what are people actually buying. What is it that they actually, how did the hype that was created on social listening translating into purchases? And what reviews does is explain, first of all, what are people buying? Distinguishes between incentivized reviews and real reviews, which means real buyers, as Shelley said, and tells you what are people experiencing, their post-purchase experience, because you will see that a lot of people buy into the hype and are extremely disappointed. And this is where reviews comes in, showing the industry what is disappointing consumers as well as what is actually surprising for the better and will probably lead into something that has longevity.
That makes a lot of sense. Even as a user myself of social media, when I'm online and I'm looking at things that I think are going to be a lasting trend, sometimes the product ultimately is disappointing.
True.
But Leo, let's get to you. Before we talk about how you partner with reviews, tell us about your role at L'Oréal and what you're responsible for.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'm super happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation, especially being here with reviews. So I'm the Global Digital Insights Manager here at L'Oréal. I'm based in Paris and I'm sitting inside research and innovation. And my role here is basically to find and implement digital tools, digital platforms, methods to make us to be closer to our consumers. So the final goal is really to bring consumer centricity to our processes here. And of course, we keep an eye on what's available in the market, and we're implementing them today in the company.
All right, so you touched a little bit about how L'Oréal uses digital insights. Maybe talk a little bit more about how you use them to quickly identify what matters most to consumers, from product features to emerging trends.
Yeah, sure. Well, digital insights are super important for us today. Of course, we do have a lot of investment in traditional research yet. So when we want to understand the big pillars that we have inside the company or go really in depth on specific things in the market. But when we talk about digital insights, this is when we can step up to another dimension of consumer insights, let's say. And the first thing is the reach that we can have with digital insights. We all know how fast the beauty industry is moving today. Every day we have new brands, new products coming in the market, and they're not only appearing, but they're booming and becoming big really quickly. And it's a challenge for us to track all of these changes in a timely manner. So I think that this is where the digital insights come into play. First thing, we have this reach, so we are able to have insights not only on big players, but also on new players, small players. And the other big point is in terms of speed, right? So with digital insights, we can really have access to these types of insights in a really timely manner that makes us more able to go to the market in a speedy way, let's say. So digital insights for sure, they are super important for us today.
So, given all of this, how did you come to work with reviews?
Yeah, so basically we had identified where we wanted to play inside the digital insights field, and one big part of it was looking at ratings and reviews. We worked with different suppliers in the past, and Reviews was one of them. We started with a local partnership in the US, and then we wanted to start harmonizing how we were looking at these ratings and reviews insights, and we start communicating to our different partners in different regions. And with Reviews, I think that we were very happy with the quality of the data that we were receiving, and also very importantly, the possibility to scale what we were doing in the US vastly. They already had a good scope, but they also had the flexibility to augment the scope to what we needed. So in 2023, that's when we started partnering with Reviews on a global level. And today it's our big partner to understand ratings and reviews insights.
Oh, that's great to know. So you were able to start small and then go global. So that's good for large companies like yourself, but also for smaller companies who may just be US based. So how does the data supplied by Reviews amplify what L'Oreal is already doing? And then how do you use it for actionable strategies that maybe drive product development and marketing and positioning?
Mhm. Well, I think that I already talked about the reach and the speed that it brings to our daily lives here. I think that there is another aspect that Reviews really helps us with, which is with this reach and with this speed, we are able to actually meet many different needs from different teams, different regions at the same time. And also it helps us to democratize a little bit consumer insights. So today, the insights that we get from Reviews, they are not just coming to the consumer insights teams. Actually, all of the teams are directly feeding into these insights. And I think that, again, it brings the consumer centricity to the culture of the company. And these insights are going directly to the marketing teams, product teams, sales teams, laboratories, and so on. So this is really nice also to see the culture shift, inside the company when we start democratizing insights. In terms of how we use this data, actually, when we think about ratings and reviews, it seems like a simple data, right? You have the star rating, you have the comment, and that's it. But actually, when we have such a big amount of data in our hands and we start really working on it and with a provider that is very specialized on ratings and reviews, we really understand the magnitude and the different use cases that we can use these types of insights. So I would mention, for example, first of all, market understanding overall. When we have such a big amount of data, we can use the statistical methods and correlations to really understand what are the topics, what are the characteristics that are really impacting final consumer satisfaction. And it really helps us to, for example, better understand categories, better understand what are the priorities when we are developing something to consumers. So this market understanding is really a big part of why we are using this data. Of course, we use it to identify trends as well. So I think it's a big source of trend watching for us because we do have the historical data. We have the flexibility of looking at it in different time frames. So trends watching is also a big part of how we are using the insights from reviews. Competitor monitoring, of course, and as I told you, we have the possibility not only to look at the big players, but also to look at the new players. And all of this helps us to identify innovation spaces, right? So what are the needs that are most important? Which of these needs maybe are not being met by the current offers in the market? So it helps us to identify where are the blank spaces in the market that we can play. Of course, it helps us also to look at our portfolio and identify renovation opportunities. It helps us to refine, optimize communication efforts. So what are people expecting and they're not having, and maybe we need to reinforce in our communication. And last but not least, tracking launches. So when we put a product in the market, I think that ratings and reviews is maybe the quickest source of data that we have today from real consumers to understand how our product is doing.
Is that it? I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
that's a lot.
That's kind of amazing. It sounds like reviews makes a smart company smarter, right? And kind of condenses it all for you. So I love a good visual, and reviews created this beautiful visual that really summarizes the trends that they identified in 2024. Noah, can you talk to us about this slide, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you. This is actually included in a report that everybody that participated in this webinar can receive after we finish. We go very deep into the measurements behind every trend and hype that we've identified here, how we got to it, and what is the rationale behind it. It's very data-driven. It's not just a flyby. It's very, very, data-driven and measure-driven. And I just want to touch on 3 out of everything that you're seeing here. The jelly lip face trend, it kind of combines lip stain and gloss, offering a sheer wash of color. We've identified this as an emerging trend in the lip and face segments. It's yet to realize its full potential. So anybody who's not in this scene, we highly advise to jump in. It's showing promise. We want to talk about something that does a little bit less well, the baking powder and foundation hype. We determined that it's a hype because it's highly, highly incentivized, even though it's very much present on social media. You can see many videos for it, but it is highly incentivized, very little organic reviews behind it, authentic reviews behind it, and consumer sentiment, organic reviews is very low. So people are trying it and are highly disappointed. We also touched on the lash cluster trend, the putty primer hype, the brow lamination hype. But I will end with the butter lip trend and kind of the segue to Leo. The butter lip trend is a growing trend, strong trend. Definitely a lot of room still there. People are looking for hydration, finding it in shea butter, cocoa butter, mango butter, incorporating it into their lip products and loving the result. You can see Kylie Cosmetics there jumping on it, but not the only one. Many others are beginning to jump in. And another one that we highly recommend joining.
Excellent. Thank you, Noah. So, Leo, can you share a real life example where you capitalized on one of these emerging trends before they became mainstream?
Yeah, I think I can capitalize on the last example that Noah gave, the butter leap trend. It's interesting because when we talk about the trends that we can see through ratings and reviews, the entry point is product, right? So you know that you have already products playing in this field, and we can identify which products are there and which products are causing this buzz. And this trend, we were very happy because one of the products from L'Oréal were actually part of the ones pushing this trend up, because of course the trend sometimes they start a little bit before, and this is the difference that Noah said in the beginning about social listening and ratings and reviews. And then when it crystallizes in real products and people purchasing it, it gets more real, let's say. So we had the Lancome Lip Butter Glow product, and that really intensified this trend in social media with consumers. And it's really interesting to see also where these trends come from, especially the trends that where we are talking about specific ingredients or specific formats. In the case of butter, for example, especially when we're using ratings and reviews, we use a lot of the ratings and reviews to identify ingredients or specific formats of products that are booming, and we make sure that to be there in this segment as quickly as possible. And yeah, it's interesting to see how these ingredients move between categories as well. Probably the butter leap is because the butter is already a known format that people use to their bodies for skincare, and then we see because the format is there, it has clear benefits, and it moves to other categories. This also happens, for example, today with skin products. So we have very well-known ingredients like hyaluronic acid that people know from skin products, and the skin category is a category where consumers, as it is sometimes expensive, people really put thought on it and they really understand what are the benefits of those ingredients. And we see the movement of these ingredients now going to the hair categories. So, for example, we launched the Hyaluron hair line, and with hyaluronic acid, that people know what are the benefits expected from the ingredient. So, yes, just a little bit of the examples that I have to share here.
Yeah, it's like the skinification of makeup and hair.
Exactly.
So let's take a look at some of Revue's data across categories. Shelley, can you maybe talk to us about this slide, please?
Yeah, I think Noah wanted to speak
I
about
can
this
take
one.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
wonderful. Thank you.
this really shows the breadth, for example, that Leo was talking about, the reach. We collect all the reviews in the cosmetics market, nail, face, lip, eye. This shows you, for example, the baseline that we use to benchmark trends and hypes against, because we know what is going on in each and every one of the categories, what is going on in lip in terms of year-over-year volume growth and incentivized review share, what is going on for face in terms of year-over-year volume growth and incentivized review share. We can now benchmark every growing product line against the segment in which it plays and to see whether it's doing better than its segment. For example, a product line that's growing in face 21% year over year may seem like it's growing, but for us, it's not growing. It's just benching with its segment. And we also can identify hypes by the amount of incentivized reviews they have. For example, if we stay with face, we expect a product line to have about 36% incentivized reviews. If we see that it has 80% incentivized reviews, we understand that it's being very much hyped by the industry, a lot of free samples sent to get people to write reviews. And that shows us that there is a serious agenda being pushed, and it gets on our radar that way.
Interesting. So, Leo, how does Revues help you to better understand the data and then maybe subsequently what to do with it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I said in the beginning. Revues is really an expert of ratings and reviews. And I think that even with my experience, I have seen that with some other providers, ratings and reviews is part of the offer. So it comes in a more simple or simplified way. And with reviews, I think that we really are able to reach the different layers of ratings and reviews. So as I told you, it seems like a very simple data to work with, but when you are working with it, you see the different layers of complexity that we can find. So for example, what Noah was talking about, incentivize the promotional reviews. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but there are reviews that the consumers, they receive the products at home to give a review, or maybe they receive an incentive to give a review. So this is promoted and pushed by the brands. And then we have the organic reviews, which are people who bought the product online and spontaneously they gave their feedback. So sometimes when you are seeing ratings and reviews in a very simplified way, you cannot grasp these differences. And when you work with a company that is really specialized on it, you are able to break down the different layers of these reviews that we are seeing. So, for example, when we are looking at trends, and don't get me wrong, we're always looking at these two types of reviews, Incentify and the promotional reviews, the organic reviews. But when we're looking at trends specifically, it's important to make this split, because as I'm looking at volume of reviews, in this case, I will want to look at the volume of organic reviews, so that I'm not looking at something that is incentivized by brands. So I think that these for me is where reviews really helps us to get in the core of ratings and reviews, because it really helps us to explore all of the layers that we have when looking at R&O.
Interesting. So how often is the data refreshed? And are you looking for different things depending on the time of year or maybe your strategic plan?
Yeah, so today we work with a refresh of data every 15 days. I think it's a good compromise for us to have a frequency of refresh so that we, for example, we can be on top of the monitoring of new launches of our products and so on. But also, we do have time together with reviews to make sure that this data is completely clean, that we can really trust in the data, and that the data is not every day it's changing, in the platform to our internal users. So the good compromise that we found here was to refresh this data every 2 weeks, and it's working well for us today. And in terms of analysis, as you mentioned, if there are specific times of the year where we use it, it really depends on the needs. As I told you, there are many different teams and regions using these insights. Of course, we have specific moments in the year that internally we have the strategic planning, and of course, this is a source of very important insight to us. We also have the specific dates of the year where you have the promotions or the specific celebrations where we want to see how much in terms of volume it is changing the market. We have seasonal differences, when we're going to look at sun care, for example, you have the seasonality of the category. So in these cases, yes, there are specific moments, but for other needs, it's consistent, like identifying or understanding the market, looking at our products and identifying any renovation opportunities and improvement opportunities, looking at new players. So this is really a constant work.
So you talked a little bit about this before, but I think a question on everyone's mind is, can you give us some examples of how you use this data, like a product launch or social listening for R&D, or maybe just something in post-launch?
Yeah, I talked a bit about the macro usages. Maybe I can share some specific examples.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe one in the technical side and one on the business side. So on the technical side, for example, we were preparing for a renovation of one SKU that is really important to us. We had already an idea of what we want to do with the renovation. We wanted to change some specific ingredients and improve the sensory experience in terms of texture and so on. So as you know, when we're preparing for a renovation, we also have many different tests that we do to evaluate the performance of these products. But before starting everything, we went to ratings and reviews to actually check if there were other improvement opportunities in this renovation. And actually, we saw that the biggest opportunity improvement was in terms of fragrance that was completely out of our radar. So before starting the whole process, through ratings and reviews, we were able to anticipate an issue that could come later in the process. And for sure, when we find out a problem later in the process, we need to go back and retest. So it really gives us a lot of advantage in terms of timing, in terms of investment, and so on.
Sure.
On the business side, for example, I have an example in the US. We actually were entering in a new category, a specific segment of a category that we weren't playing before. We came up with a very strong product in terms of benefits. We knew what we could deliver. But before the launch, we took a look at the biggest players that were already playing in this segment, and we identified where they were not performing so well, and we crossed it with the topics that are highly correlated to final satisfaction. And with this crossing, we were able to identify what was really important to users and that they were not being the needs were not being met. So this helped us to brief the communication. And in this way, we are able to make consumers very secure that the pain points that they have today, they are being addressed in this new law.
Wow. So interesting, the intricacies and the intelligence and how it can inform your next move. That's fascinating. So the title of today's panel is Hyper Trends. We talked a little bit about the skinification and how that trend helped inform you with products into different categories. Can you also tell us how reviews data helped inform you whether something is substantial or will last?
Mhm. Yes, I think that there are the maybe two main characteristics that with the depth of the analysis that we get from reviews, we are able to really understand better trends and hypes. One is the flexibility and the easiness for us to look at data on a storyline, on a historical line, let's say, because this is where we are able to identify whether something has a peak or whether something has a consistent growth. So have the possibility to play with the time frames and look at data across time is very important to us. And the second point is also the easiness and the layering that I told you about promotional and organic reviews. When talking about trends, this is a very specific and important characteristic to to consider. And
Okay.
these are things that we have from reviews, and also they help us to understand, how these things are correlated and what is the best way for us to look at the data and take the insights.
Excellent. So if you didn't know, Reviews has a hype trend measuring system. Noah, can you talk to us about this and explain exactly what this is?
So we touched on it before, but I will kind of summarize it and bring it all together. At the end of the day, we look at the trend of the volume of the product line that we're seeing is upticking. We look at whether, it's growing by a lot or whether it's just growing sort of average to the segment in which it plays. If it's growing, if it's over-indexing by hundreds of percentage points, it's on our radar and we start to take notice of it. But then we also look at what percentage of this review volume that's really, really growing is highly hyped, meaning highly promoted or incentivized, and what percentage of it is organic. And we benchmark it against the incentivization share that's sort of expected in the segment. So if it's a lot more incentivized than expected, we are beginning to understand that there is somebody pushing it. And then we also want to see, okay, so if somebody is pushing it, if there is a manufacturer or a company pushing it, people are actually buying it, the organic reviews, what do they feel about it? What is their sentiment? And we look at the sentiment of these organic reviews to see how it benchmarks against the organic review sentiment in the segment. If we see that it's on par or even better, we understand that even though if it's hyped and pushed, people seem to be liking it. And if people seem to be liking it, we know that there could be longevity to this hype and it might turn into a trend. And then the third thing we look at is how many brands have jumped on this wagon, meaning if it's only one brand that's pushing this, that doesn't really bode well for this because usually that indicates a hype. But if there are 2, 3 brands that are beginning to join, that means that there is like power in numbers. And this hype is actually beginning to be a budding and emerging trend. So to summarize, by combining all these variables, we gain a clearer picture of whether we're looking at a hype that may soon fade or whether we're looking at a trend with a potential to reshape the market.
Fascinating. So we've learned so much about reviews and how they can work with brands. What are the different ways brands can partner with reviews? Shelley, can you maybe talk to us about how brands can possibly utilize your AI technology?
Yes, sure. And when we talk about brand and brand, I think it's important to us that while Leo is representing L'Oréal, a large leader in the market of cosmetics and beauty, I'm sure we have online here people who represent smaller brands or medium-sized brands. So I think what we are sharing here is actually that any brand can use the data that we provide and the insight that we provide. The fact that we actually understand the whole category, no matter what category you're looking at. The fact that we know how to identify small brands and big brands. And when you think about your competitors, there's only one platform that can provide you that, the magnitude of data whether you're small or big, it doesn't really matter. I'm sure every brand here is following 2 to 4 brands that they feel that they are competing with, but actually compete. I always say compete and innovation never goes to sleep. And so while you're looking at 3 brands, probably there's a small brand that is now doing something that will be innovative or something that will drive a hype or a trend, as Noah said, and you will not be aware of because you're focusing only on very few brands that you feel that you're competing with, but you're actually competing with the whole world. And so I think what's important is that we allow brands, no matter what size they are, to understand the market, understand trends and hype, but also understand how to translate those insights into real actions. So you were asking, Andrea, what can they do? They can translate that either to prioritization for wish lists for product teams, but you can also, because you have to prioritize, right? Life is all about prioritization. But then you can also translate that into marketing messaging. What should we prioritize in keywords when we go to our ad, to our influencers? You know, the semantic things about using the right words to your audience is crucial. And this aligns well to the story you're telling everyone. And why should they trust you? What's the promise that you're bringing? And so you have to understand better what's your forte and what your competitors are saying, right? And so we provide not just insights, we provide you end result. We can enrich your PDP with a summary of what reviews people are saying. We can show you what are the topics that are trending. We can tell you how to change your messaging, what keywords to use when you're doing your messaging or using to perform somewhere. So there's so many things that you can do and align between your marketing strategy and innovation. That's a triangle that you always have to play with, right? And with big data, you need AI for that.
Yeah, for sure. So, and thankfully, consumer consumption continues to open the doors of opportunity for smaller brands. Noah, can you talk to us about this consumer hunger and how this really does provide a ground for these small up-and-coming brands to play and to compete?
So, I mean, the cosmetics and skincare industry, I think it's unparalleled in terms of consumer motivation to try new things. The innovation level is just unprecedented, and people will try anything once. I guess it's because, you know, at the end of the day, you lost $30, $40, $10. I mean, it's a trial that you can actually venture to take, even if it doesn't work. And it's extremely sending free samples to people to try is also very, very prevalent. So that creates an ecosystem where any brand that enters the market can just decide to put a little budget, send free samples, even to influencers, and see if it catches. And if it's got something innovative about it, it will probably catch for a short term. I can tell you one example. A few years ago, at Revuze, I'm in charge of the professional services, the reporting. We did a report for a big company, and they were really interested in hydration. And we started to see, that was years ago, we started to see snail mucin coming up. Okay. And we were like, are we really seeing this? Is this really true? And this Korean company that was really a no-name, CosRx, was just beginning to come into the US market with it. And people were going crazy for it. And this was just booming. And we were double checking, triple checking to see if this was true. And lo and behold, you know, everybody knows the Korean cosmetics products trend. Everybody knows snail mucin by now. I mean, it's just become this almost a mature trend now. I would even venture to say that it's on the decline already. So yeah, that was a no-name brand coming into the US market. And we were at Revuze seeing it and reporting to our clients that this is something that they should be looking out for. And, you know, the rest is history.
Amazing. I had no idea that that's how it started, but I do remember seeing snail mucin, I think, at a trade show a long time ago and had the same reaction. Is this really going to take off? So thank you. This was an amazing panel, so informative. We're now going to move to our Q&A. So if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat. We're going to actually start. We have a question now, and goes to the panel. Does the panel have an example of effectively layering traditional research with AI to generate incremental gains for a specific brand?
I can take that if you want, but Leo, do you want to? It
No,
would be
no, go
interesting for me
ahead.
to. Okay, we don't layer traditional research. We feel that we are the evolution of traditional research. We feel that a lot of what you can get with traditional research, you can get with the post-purchase experience data, usage purpose analysis, comparison analysis, market entry analysis, you can get through reviews. And as Leo said, unless you jump in and see the multi-layer and complexity that reviews can give you, you won't understand how much you can get from reviews data that you can get from traditional market research. We're used at reviews for anything from product development, market entry, trends, a lot of usage purpose, a lot of the things that product launch analysis, product development analysis, ingredient examination, everything that you would probably use a survey or a focus group for, they use us for, and we feel that we are the evolution of traditional market research.
Interesting. So another question came in. While seeing multiple brands jump on something could be interesting for a growing trend, how can a brand that wants to be a first mover or disruptor leverage the data to identify opportunities? Asked better, is there a way to leverage the data to assess the strength of reception if the unmet need is delivered upon?
That's an amazing question. And I'm happy to say that with reviews, you have a SWOT analysis. So you can see, you can look at a category, a specific brand that you want to look at, and then understand from a SWOT analysis, what are the weaknesses that are unmanaged at the current situation in a specific market. So you can always see what are the opportunities, weaknesses, and see if that's not met by any other brand. You can then take that hype and make that a hype and a trend.
Excellent. And there's a question that came in for Leo. How do you integrate review data with all the other data sources that L'Oréal has access to? Where does the reviews data fall into the mix?
Yeah, I think that this is the big challenge that all of the big companies are facing, right? We have a lot of different sources of data, even specifically talking about consumer insights. We have a lot of different sources of consumer insights. And yes, today we do have a lot of investment to be able to connect all of these data points coming from different sources. Of course, it's not easy, but this is definitely something that we are completely on board to do as soon as possible. We do have already some links of some of these types of insights and databases, and for sure we will continue to work hard to make sure that one day everything will be fully integrated.
And also for you, Leo, how do you find the insights differ by market or country, if at all?
Yes, this is a big question, and also when we are implementing a new digital method or solution, there is a big work also to train people on how to use our data, how to view our data. When we are looking at ratings and reviews, of course, that these will have a lot of differences when you're looking at the results across countries. So, and this is also the big risk when you don't have a company with you for you to really understand ratings and reviews in depth. I see a lot of people that just go on Amazon and see the star ratings, it's 4.7, so I think it's good. And then we always need to look at ratings and reviews versus an average, versus the market, versus the benchmark, because that's where the insights are going to make sense to us. And for sure, this benchmark is going to change and change drastically when we are looking at different markets. I'm Brazilian, for example, and we see in Brazil, people are very positive in the way that they give their feedback. So maybe if people hate a product, they will give like 3 stars, maybe 4, you know. While in other countries, if people really like a product, they will give 4 stars as well. So you really need to look at these results versus the average of the market. One of the big mistakes that people may do is, you know, compare ratings of different countries side by side, because a 4-star rating in Brazil may be bad, while a 4-star rating in France may be good. It really depends on the market, on the culture, on the category that you're playing. So yes, they differ.
Wow. This question is for reviews. What is the source of the data that you use? Is it Amazon? Is it manufacturers' websites?
So yeah, that's a great question. We can bring any data that is public, so anything that is not behind password, from either brand.com website, marketplaces, and any e-retailer website, including Google reviews and Yelp and whatever. So we can bring everything.
Okay. So, here's someone who wants some free insights.
Yeah, I saw the icing piece,
But
right?
yeah, what do you think of skin icing products?
Yeah. So Andrea, can you help me understand who asked about that? We don't know.
I
Okay,
did.
so whoever asked about the icing product specifically, it's a great question. I don't think we can address this now, but I do encourage you to either send an email to myself, to Noah, or to any of the reviews team. Please mention that I've requested you. We will set a call with you to briefly, Noah and the team will tell you what they think about that hype. I don't think we have the time here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. That is fair. Here's another question. What is the main difference between a trend and a hype? And have there been instances where a hype has turned into a trend? Oh, I like that question.
Oh,
Noah.
absolutely. And I would highly urge the person who asked this question to download the report that we put together. One of the first slides that we addressed kind of summarizes what we are showing in the report. Some of it are what we consider hypes and we feel are going to go away. And some of it are hypes that are turning into emerging trends. And the main difference between a hype and a trend is that a hype is probably something that is artificially being hyped, meaning it's being pushed artificially by a manufacturer that wants it to catch on and is highly incentivizing it, sending it for free to people in return for a review, hoping that they'll like it enough, tell their friends, and have it catch on as a trend. A hype does not catch on because it usually disappoints. There was one example there of the baking powder that's disappointing people because it's causing irritations and it's not doing what it needs to be doing. Brow lamination products are causing eyebrow dandruffs and all sorts of other like white casts on people's eyebrows, and people can't, go around with dandruff on their eyebrows for very long. So unless somebody comes in and does it correctly, it's going to probably be a hype. Whereas trends are a product that started as hypes, delivered on their promise. People really loved them. Other brands jumped in, delivering high quality products. And from this point on, the demand became organic, meaning you didn't have to incentivize it as much, and people were just going around and buying it repeatedly, in which case it's become a trend.
I think Andrea, what Noah is saying is that the flow should be, and the team here, the flow should be, I identify a hype, then I want to see followed by positive reviews on that specific organic and positive. So they have to meet the organic and positive. You'll probably then see another brand to 2 brands that are following that, and that becomes a trend.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the flow of how things evolve.
That makes sense. Got it. So do you think that overall reviews might be more heavy on negative versus positive feedback? Since generally people that have issues with something, they're probably more likely to complain than to write a review about it. So would that kind of mean that potentially there's a biased approach to only look at reviews?
Noah?
I think Leo touched on it really, really nicely. I love the example that he gave about, you know, a 4-star rating
Yeah.
in Brazil can be low. Whether reviews are positive, more skewed positive or negative, I think is a valid question, but that's not how we look at things. As Leo said, we look at a market and we see what percentage of the market is discussed, has high ratings versus low, and that becomes the benchmark. So any product now gets benchmarked against that. So if, for example, 70% of the reviews are skewed positive, a product with 80% positivity is now beating the market. It's beating the odds. Whereas a product with 60% positivity level or sentiment is now underperforming. And as with surveys or quantitative surveys, you always benchmark against something. And we operate in the same exact way. We use traditional market research fundamentals and foundations, the tried and true statistical significance benchmarking that traditional market research has given us, only we do it at a much bigger scale, much bigger reach, and at higher speeds.
And I think we need to also address the fact, thank you, Noah, the magnitude of size of data. So you can't say everyone is whining, everyone is complaining, right? So even if people tend more to complain, you'll see that overall things are being balanced and you can understand the motion there. So I don't think it's more negative. And by the way, a review could be both, right? So a review is contained of few opinion. It's not just one opinion, which everyone needs to understand. I can say the mascara was clumping, but I think that it was a good value for the money. So there's two opinions here. I wouldn't say the review is negative in general, right? There's two opinions.
Right.
What we do
Right.
is we break those reviews into opinion to allow you to better understand what people are saying. There's a say about clumping and there's a say about value for money. You should understand both.
Are there any risks when trying to identify trends through R&R resources?
Yes, if you don't identify incentivized reviews correctly, and which is something that I don't think anybody does better than reviews, then you might think that something is highly trending, or that's where you need to put your money on, or your product development, where in fact this is highly hyped, doesn't really have longevity. So yes, I think ratings and reviews, it's an area of expertise. Not everybody that just scrapes a few reviews and reads them and does a very quick kind of topic analysis can claim to be an expert in ratings and reviews. There are so many intricacies that go into doing it correctly and into extrapolating the right insights.
Excellent. So here's our last question. How do you consider user error or consumers reviewing organically when a product doesn't work for their specific concern? Like, for example, reviews about hair growth products or scalp care when the user is struggling with hair loss.
Well, there's a big difference between hair loss because of a product, which goes back to defect, right? Which we also knew at the past for some product. Or is it hair loss because I came with an issue about hair loss and that product did not help me, right? There's different things to better understand here. So you need to understand what was the product purpose value all about, and did it met the expectations?
Interesting.
We can distinguish, and this is a good point. We can definitely distinguish between the two. We also have a team of experts at Reviews where we can really deep dive into the very, very small nitty-gritty of all these little questions. This is where my team comes in. But yeah, I mean, it's all about interpreting the data correctly, and this is something that we can say we're experts in.
Excellent. So that was our last question. Please look at the chat, access the link. You can download the report. Also, CEW will send the report to all attendees here today after the webinar. Thank you so much, Shelley and Noah and Leah. We all learned so much, and it was really a pleasure to spend the afternoon with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot.